right, perfect. So thanks so much for sticking around. I know it's hard to say no to product market fit, so we certainly appreciate you spending time to think about sort of the 0 to 1 for growing your business. In many cases, this is like the hardest part of getting the journey started, right? It seems like the most sort of audacious task of getting that company going. And so we have 3 illustrious founders here to help us understand more of the decision-making process when you're going from 0 to 1, what things you should be looking for, ways to de-risk that process, and especially coming from the perspective of maybe not having a safety net, maybe have a non-traditional background or coming from an underrepresented group. So really having that unique perspective. And with that, I will actually let you introduce yourselves because I feel like it's more authentic that way. But maybe, Sam, if you want to start?
Sure. My name is Samuel Ulloa, first generation immigrant from Jalisco, Mexico. Grew up in Sacramento Valley, right up the road. I am the co-founder and CEO of Listo. It's a fintech company that's democratizing access to life-changing financial services for the underserved market.
Beautiful. Hi, everyone. My name is Kimiloluwa Fafowora. You can also call me Kimmy. I am the founder and CEO of Gander, where we help e-commerce brands connect with shoppers at scale. It's primarily through using video content, and we have raised $4.5 million to date, and are really on this 1 to 10 phase. So I'm super excited to connect with you all.
And hi everyone, my name is Beatriz Ayala. I am originally from Puerto Rico, currently located in Miami, Florida, and a lot of Argentinians there. And I am the founder and CEO of a company called Musicasa. And with Musicasa, we are transforming how people gather by turning homes into entertainment venues. So what that looks like is we match homes with musicians so that they can co-create very intimate and private and curated home concert experiences for audiences of up to 40 people. So peer-to-peer, we're doing for the live entertainment industry what Airbnb did for travel or Uber did for transportation, which is really transforming how we consume live music and how we get together at the home.
That's amazing. So where I'd love to start is understanding a little bit more about how you started your entrepreneurial journey. Like, at what point you decide that, you know, I'm not going to McKinsey, I'm not going to Google, I'm going to go and start something. And I won't pick on anyone, I'll let you sort of answer.
We can do rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
Sorry, you start. If you want to start.
Tag Ahmed, I guess. All right, here. I knew I shouldn't have sat here. No, you know, I think that our personal experiences are true power. For me, it was personal. Growing up, neither of my parents had a credit score. They were recent immigrants to the U.S. I saw how much they struggled just to get, you know, credit to cover an emergency, or even an auto loan to get a reliable vehicle to get to work, and oftentimes even had to pay more just to rent an apartment, right? And they came to this country for the quote-unquote American dream. What I realized, having gone through that experience, is that the American dream is built on credit, and that access to credit is not equitable access, accessible to all, right? So I wanted to build something that made that difference and sort of normalize the playing field for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go ahead. We don't have to go in a line the entire time, but
You're it.
I will share that I decided that I was ready to take the jump when I started working at another startup under a young CEO who was incredibly privileged and truthfully not as talented as a lot of other people I knew who were sort of doing, you know, rote jobs, climbing the ladder, and just didn't have the confidence that he so bullishly portrayed. It's a little bit of a unusual story in the sense that I feel like people tend to not just explicitly say. Sometimes when you work for other people and you recognize, hey, I'm actually just as talented, if not more talented than this individual, that moment really can galvanize you to say, let me bet on myself and let me go ahead and start my own company.
That's a very political way to tell that story. You polished it. I like it. My story is interesting because I was very comfortable in my corporate America job. I spent I'm a recovering advertising marketing executive. I spent 11 years in that world. And Hurricane Maria happened in Puerto Rico, and that sort of like changed the game in terms of really feeling disconnected with what was important, with myself, with my community. So I decided to take a step back. I went to I invested in a trip around the world backpacking for a year because I really wanted to understand how people were living, how people were interacting with each other, what were people talking about. There was this thing called remote work that they wouldn't let me do in advertising, so I was sort of like interested in that. And I remember coming back and very adamantly deciding that I didn't want to go back to that world and that I wanted to build something, I just didn't know what. So I took a chance and I moved here to Palo Alto. Which was interesting because I didn't know anyone and I was very lonely and I was very sad and I was bleeding money because I didn't have a job. And I just quickly realized that I needed to find a way to meet people and build community. And I was I grew up in an island where I wasn't surrounded by people that were building things and growing things, but I grew up in my parents' home. And my parents' home was a venue. Like literally, since I was 3-4 years old, my parents were hosting everything from weddings to just like jam sessions with people coming in and out of like a sliding door type of situation. So for me, it was like, how can I bring this idea of coming together under one roof where you can add sort of like the food component or the music component to sort of like meet new people, and who do I know that has a home in Palo Alto that can lend it to me so that I can meet people and just build community. At that point, I just wanted to find a tech job so that I could start making money again. And then, joke on me, it became the company that I started founding. And a month after creating the idea, I raised my first friends and family round of $35,000, and I've never looked back.
Wow. So as you can imagine, sort of the journey is different for everyone. And I'm curious, as you were going down that path, what was your biggest fear when you were starting? Like, what was the thing that you felt was sort of weighing on you about the decision you were making to go into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I can share that there's something about entrepreneurship that felt inherently selfish, especially if you're coming from a minority background, right? You have other people relying on you. You could go the safer route, make plenty of money, and continue to support those around you. I certainly had to take a step back and think about the fact that as much as I care about supporting other people, that doesn't mean I have to do it in the safest way possible. So for me, that looked like saying, I know I can be successful. I know that I can take at least 5 years off of my life to explore this opportunity with the hope of being able to support my family and those around me significantly more than I would be able to. So long story short, just taking that moment to pause and reflect on the fact that yes, you do have to continue to care about those around you, those who have brought you to where you want to be, but you also owe it to yourself to try and chase that dream of entrepreneurship if it's truly what you think is best for you.
Yeah, there's a saying that goes, you're going to be the common denominator of your 5 closest friends. That couldn't be truer for me, for sure. I was probably the least entrepreneurial growing up because when you come here from humble beginnings, you want to latch on to that, that $10 an hour job because you remember that they hired you as an intern at 5, right, or whatever it was, right, and your parents are working in the fields at minimum wage. So you look at the world very differently. You become very risk averse, right? Then all of a sudden you see your friends starting companies and somehow they convince you, right? And this is during the dot-com. And they convince you and you fail miserably after graduating the top of your class from engineering, choosing your job, and then you come back with nothing, right? In basically a recession. So it's a very humbling experience for me. And I have to truthfully tell you that I would have not gone back had it not been through the Stanford, given the Stanford experience I had here, right? And then all of a sudden you come to Stanford GSB and you start thinking of the world a little bit differently, right? So that those 5 friends just got multiplied by your whole class, right? And everybody's willing to take that risk. You build a courage deep inside to make that difference. And you do it maybe in a little bit more calculated way with a lot more learnings and experience and a broader network. But that's when I went off to swing for the fences again. And luckily the second company was successful. It did a successful IPO. And now I'm on my 3rd. So, but it is a tough decision and very personal for everybody. So surround yourselves with some good friends if this is what you want to do.
I really, really love that because surrounding yourself with the right people can spark so much for you and open doors of opportunities where you didn't even see that there could be spark for yourself. I was scared. You don't know what you don't know, right? So I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And I'll share a story. I remember creating the business plan, if you will, in this little black notebook. And I'm talking to the one of like 10 friends that I had in Palo Alto at that time, and I'm like, hey, I have this idea, and this is a vision that I have for it, and I make the pitch without knowing that I'm pitching him, and he's like, I want to invest, and I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I want to invest I'll give you your first check if you find 5 other checks. So I remember calling my brother and being like, someone's offering me money, is this legal? And he's cracking up, and he's like, send me the information, I'll do the due diligence. So he calls me back, he's like, I'm giving you a check, call your sister. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, this is legal, I can actually receive money from people that are believing in the idea that I have, and I ended up raising money from mentors that have been part of my life for the past 10 to 5 years. So they knew me at my core, they knew my work ethic, they had seen my 11 years in advertising, and when they saw the idea and the vision that I have for the company, they were like, you were born to do this company, and you need to do this, so that's why we're gonna give you the money. So for me, it was sort of more of like, I am very aligned with what I'm building because I inherently believe and have conviction that the problem that we're solving needs to be addressed. And the way to address it is by merging technology and music and a whole new way of thinking about live entertainment that hasn't been thought out before. And that's what we're aiming to build.
Totally. And it seems like one of the common themes or one of the common misconceptions is that founding is sort of this solo mission that you just go and do it by yourself, and great founders succeed and everyone else fails. And there's not this sense of community. But if you look at each one of your stories, right? So in Sam's case, you built this community here at Stanford that sort of helped you when things were down and sort of pointed things out to you. In Kimmy's case, you had your family that you were looking at their expectations. You built Beatriz, you built your network of advisors, and you had your siblings as well to call on. Can you talk a little bit about what did you look for? How did you know that you had found sort of your peloton or your crew of people to help you get through the friction that comes with starting your own company?
Yeah, I mean, when you start a company, I think that community is not necessarily the people that are going to be working with you on an everyday basis, but one of them is in here as well. Actually, 2 of them, right? My closest friends and also advisors to the company, right? So you basically. Starting a company is kind of like you selecting your partner for life, right? And to some degree, you're going to spend more time building your company than you are with your family or immediate family at home. And it's really important that you do something that's fun and engaging, and that the people you bring along understand you and can encourage you and push you along the way, because there's going to be highs and lows. But not to repeat something that's been said many, many times, right? The end goal is really not the goal, it's really the journey, because a lot of these do fail, right? And if you didn't enjoy the journey, then you're gonna be a very miserable person. But I gotta tell you, I wake up every day super passionate, excited. Yeah, I could have had a comfortable corporate job, right? But I can't think of myself doing anything else for myself that's more fulfilling, and also a way to give back to my community. So the people you bring in and the people I interact with, we're aligned in those values, right? So that makes it that much more fun.
Yeah, for me, I knew I had, so I'm a connector. I love meeting people and building relationships and bringing people together and really finding what are sort of like the things that we don't tend to see that are actually the sparks of connection for other people to come together. And I've spent my entire life building relationships. I've spent my entire life like curating experiences where people can come together and meet and let them sort of like realize what the door of opportunity is within their relationship. So for me, that first core of the community that I built around what I was building was people that knew me, people that knew how much I love music and bringing people together. I've been curating music since I was 7, so I'm the person that they always have a memory around music. So us starting Musicasa specifically with music, they already knew that there was sort of like a love and connection about that specifically. But also you want people that are gonna mention your name in places that you're not invited, or that or that haven't been open for you in the past, but people that will organically and happily open doors for you so that you can step into, leveling up. And the only way that you can actually level up is by asking for help, but also asking for introductions to people and places and organizations that you would have never thought in a million years that they will be interested in meeting you as well. It's a mutual relationship, and sometimes we forget that investor and founder relationships are very much like a marriage, or I don't want to call it a family, but you're building a relationship that foundationally needs to be really strong. So you want to start early on in getting to know them and them get to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with what both of you guys have shared. And I'll layer it in with maybe a little bit more of a tactical piece that feels more like what would be being shared at the PMF session that's going on in the other room. For me, the decision to say, I am ready to make this jump really looked like somebody has committed to giving me money for this idea. Sounds very basic, but when we're dealing with the realities of trying to take the calculated risk of starting something new, for me personally, that was something I could not do unless I knew I had financial support or financial backing either from customers or investors. I'm sure circumstances are very different for everyone. It also depends a little bit on what kind of business model you're trying to build out. For example, if it's B2B, you want a contract in place. If it is a friends and family, you want friends and family saying, hey, I will pay for your first event or something like that. But either way, for me, the moment where things clicked and I said, you know what, I have the conviction ready to go ahead and jump was when I had money in the bank.
I have to agree with that. For me, this was started as a passion project, and all of a sudden I have 5 people giving me money. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is actually the most money I've seen in my bank account for a long time. Because I remember I quit my job, right? I invested all my money in traveling, and all of a sudden it's like people are believing in you, and it sort of like gets you out of that like funk that you've been because you left your career and you still haven't figured out what your footing is in the new world and what type of value you're gonna start bringing on. And all of a sudden they're like, here's these people telling you that they believe in you. I owe it to myself to believe in myself too. And what's the path that I wanna create forward for building it? And I mean, I'll let you ask more questions, but the 0 to 1, it's a roller coaster, and you sort of like need to have your own cadence and your own non-negotiables to be very secure about what you're doing, and like having the consistency and the audacity to keep going when the entire world is telling you will never make it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm curious too, for the first checks, was it more about the dollars that were coming in or the validation that came from people sort of betting on you? Or maybe neither of those things?
For me, it was the validation.
Yeah, I would say it's a mix of the two, because for me, the validation can't be unlinked from the amount. If I'm trying to build $1 billion idea and somebody's, I'll give you $100, that's not really putting me where I need to be. So yeah, they're inextricably linked.
You could just make up sort of like vanity metrics. And,
I could, but we're trying to take calculated risks.
We went from $0 to $100 a month. We're growing at an infinite growth rate. So
for me, it depends on which one, right? The first one failed miserably. It was quite a humbling experience, but it was a success given the learnings we had. The second one, I don't think it was validation, just because I felt, I had developed a toolbox of resources, networks out of Stanford B School, which allowed me to come out with a lot more confidence. It was almost like, how could I not? If I was blessed enough to go through that experience, I almost have to do it, right?
Totally.
And then it was just taking the leap of faith, right? And then getting money as I went along and so forth. But yeah, I don't know that I would have done that without the GSB experience though.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one thing I'd love to highlight too is, I think you said something really critical there around, in the first business, it wasn't financially successful, but it was still successful because of what we learned.
Correct.
And I think sometimes people define success very narrowly in their business, where they're saying, okay, it's only successful on the day that we IPO and we ring the bell, which means a whole lot of the time you're going to spend being miserable and sort of chasing your tail and feeling like you haven't accomplished anything. And so in some ways you have this agency to being able to define success in the ways that matter to you. And it seems like a really critical learning. Can you talk a little bit about what have been the biggest surprises on this journey?
I can start. I have many surprises, but I'll stick to 2. And the first surprise is 90% of this is showing up. Going to that meeting, going to that networking event, applying to that accelerator program that told 2 times already, and the 3rd time they say yes. Like, you have to show up. No one's gonna come knocking on your door. And the 10% of that, you already know because you know your business, you know your metrics, you know your numbers. Like you've done the modeling, you've talked to customers. Like you have to be consistent with the way that you show up yourself. And there are days that you're not gonna want to get out of bed because yesterday you had the product failed or an investor said no, but that's not where the road ends. That's where the road begins. Every no is a new road to a new possibility. It's you learning how to adjust so that you can go and get that yes. And that's like, it's not so much the surprise hasn't been so much that the external validation that you get. People give you validation when you validate yourself. So the moment that you start validating yourself, the rest of the world is gonna see you, and they're gonna see you for who you are, and they're gonna see you for what you're building. So you have to trust in your agency and believe that you are the creator of your reality. Everyone says the market is a mess right now. It's true, the market is a mess right now. What are you gonna do with that? Is that gonna make you stop and not take the chance? Or are you gonna create the process for yourself so that you can enter a world of uncertainty so that you can have certainty that you're building the right thing? So there's a lot of power in owning your responsibility and making your life and your path sacred to what you need in order to be successful, whatever success means to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting because a lot of what you're sharing is around the mental preparation that's absolutely critical for going from 0 to 1, whatever stage you're trying to go to, beyond that as well. And for me, the most surprising thing and something that I wake up every morning, almost every morning, telling myself is this is hard. I left out the expletive there.
With a pause.
With a pause. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys are sitting in your seats saying, well, yes, that's obvious, duh. I say that more to just be completely transparent about the journey that you will be embarking on if you decide to do something full time. And having that awareness of how difficult it is will allow you to set yourself up for the mental preparation. So yeah, I mean, literally for the past like 6 weeks in particular for me, I've woken up and been like, oh, I thought last week was bad. This is even harder. But at the same time, that surprise or realizing that things get progressively harder sets you up in such a way that you can go ahead and say, well, let me continue to mentally prepare myself. Let me continue to show up every single day so I can get through these tough times.
Yeah. And just to build on that, I think that's a really good point. You know, I've been blessed that I am an angel investor in LP, but the number one thing I look for in entrepreneurs is exactly that. I mean, are they really in it for the right reasons? Are they going to stick it out? Or, you know, people are getting into it because it's kind of sexy. Like, yeah, I get to be my own boss, right? It's like, and then you're in it like, oh, it's not worth it. It's like you start doing the math and like your opportunity cost is pretty darn high. But yes, so thank you for sharing that. So I'll share 2 surprises. The early surprise when early on, and then the more recent ones, I think. Early on, and you know, we talk a lot about it, and I think in the context of this audience, it makes a lot of sense, and it's very appropriate. We heard it from the investors up here, right? That investors are biased, and they should be because they're putting patterns together, right? Right? They're investing in things that they've seen or heard that work, right? But then also things that they can connect to you. They're like, okay, I get it. I had that problem. I understand it. Right? It was extremely surprising for me to see that even finding enough investors to invest in an underserved market, it's extremely hard. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why, you know, underserved communities have, you know, they're underrepresented on investing. We don't have enough investors probably out there either, right? So it's a balanced equation, right? So interestingly enough, the first investors that passed on our seed round in the first company and then went public, they let our seed round in the next one. They're like, all right, we get it. It's like, we don't need the pitch anymore. We're not going to miss this one, right? But it's, yeah, that was very surprising to me, and it's very real, and it's true. It's all about relationships and people. Mm-hmm. Along the same lines, you know, one of the things I learned at Stanford, and you know, we said that despite all the technical skills you can learn in building a business, probably some of the most useful classes were on the organizational dynamics, touchy-feely, right? Mm-hmm. Connecting with people. A company is all about people, right? We talked about even your odds of success is who you surround yourself with, right? Yeah. So we've all been through a roller coaster ride, right? And I've been blown away that even though I knew that, just seeing how important it is to build a culture that's very intentionally built right? We're lucky enough to have a very social, mission-driven company that's really helping people, and we can actually measure it and put it up a score. I mean, our regrettable attrition is almost non-existent, right? People are stuck with us through COVID, through the ups and downs, right? Through these macro changes that happen you can't control. But that gives you durability, that gives you purpose. I just been blown away. It's super important, very hard to do, but I can't emphasize that has really blown my socks off. Yeah.
So there's a common narrative that gets told about how being an underrepresented founder is a disadvantage, it's a headwind, it's an uphill battle. I'd love to change the framing on that and let you talk about like the scenarios in which it's been an advantage, where it's actually helped you, whether it's a perspective or whether it's access or camaraderie, community, you name it. I'm curious about that piece because I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah. I mean, I can go just based on the first company. Oftentimes when I asked investors for advice and like, what company should I start? What should I do? They would come back and ask me a question. What's your unfair advantage, right? And I think coming from an underserved community gives you so much power, right? You have a different lens. You're seeing the world from a different lens. You see problems that others don't necessarily see, right? And it also allows you to build product that's aligned that nobody else could see. I've lived through both of those in starting at companies in the underserved communities. Even after the company became successful, 9 times out of 10 people would say, there's no way that would ever work, right? And that's because they didn't walk in that truth, in that path. And I think that within itself is extremely powerful, and it gives you an unfair advantage, right?
Yeah, I would echo that, definitely in terms of need finding. The world has enough CRM tools or like robots for X, Y, and Z. People aren't solving real problems anymore in a lot of ways. And when it comes to thinking about venture markets and building a massive company, how you do it is by solving a problem. But because of how startups have been structured historically, the problems that were solved did not address underserved markets. So totally agree with you on that point that it helps an immense amount with need finding. And I will add as well, something that I heavily lean into, part of the reason why you see my full name on my email or everywhere is people want to talk to minorities more frequently this day and age. I don't love that it's a little bit of a trend, and I hope it's not something that ends, but either way, like as women or minorities, when it's not, I don't want to use a name, but like Joe Rogan or something in the inbox, but it's a name that's different, or you show up on a Zoom call and you obviously have a different dynamic that most investors aren't looking at 24/7, that is an edge, and it certainly gets you into a lot of rooms that historically, unfortunately, people didn't have access to.
I struggle with this question because some days I wake up and I think it's a superpower, and other days I wake up and I'm like, I am tired of being like a social impact type of number. And I come from Puerto Rico. Like we can't be more resilient because we can't. Like historically, we went from being a Spanish colony to an American colony. We have no power whatsoever in making our own decisions as an island. Like the funding after hurricanes, it's minimal and people are suffering. So for me, it's like, what else can you do to break me? And you will not break me, because there's been worse things in my life that have happened that have prepared me for this moment. I've done harder things in my life that have prepared me to be an entrepreneur, and I've been told that I am a minority since the moment that I applied to go to university at 18 years old, right? Like, oh, you need to apply as a minority. And I go to my mom, I'm like, what do you mean I'm a minority? Like, yeah, because you're going to mainland US and like the numbers, I'm like, this is all so confusing and it doesn't make sense. So I really struggle with this, and I don't have this is the most honest answer that I can give you. Like some days I'm so proud of being a female founder, empowered, taking control of my own life. And other days I'm like, don't look at me as a female, look at me as a founder that's building a real thing that's needed in this world. And forget the labels and let's just talk business. Yeah. What are we here for? Let's talk business. So I hope that, as we get to build the future of this country and understanding that in 20 years from now, this is gonna be a majority nation, what are we building together? What's the language that we're using? How are we gonna educate people on how to treat us and how to relate to us and come talk to us? It's in our hands also to educate others on how to go about it, instead of just falling in the narrative that exists today that is not gonna be the same narrative that exists in 20 years.
Yeah, and it seems too like that the best investors are thinking that way. I mean, I always think back to the sort of Warren Buffett quote, right? That opportunity is the delta between value and perception. And I think a lot of the best investors are saying, well, there's a perception that these companies aren't as valuable, and that's where the opportunity resides. And it's not necessarily about the demographic group, it's about the opportunity that you probably do see something that someone else doesn't see. And so I am seeing like that shift, and I think to your point, it's like this is the thing we have to lean into. I'm gonna ask one more question, and then I'm gonna open up to everyone else here. So I'm curious, along the way, were there ideas that you tried, and at some point you realized like that's not the one, and you had to sort of discard it? And talk a little bit about maybe what that process was like, and sort of the sense of loss maybe that comes from having built something that didn't work and having to discard it.
Yeah, I remember when we were trying to figure out what we were building, what we were doing was pitching to a major Fortune 500 corporation, billions of dollars in revenue. And I remember staying up for like a week putting together this presentation, talking about our idea. And within 5 minutes of the meeting, the woman who's on the other side of the line, she pauses me. She's like, this is just not that interesting. She said, I've already seen a bunch of tools like this. This is not super helpful. But this piece, and it was like the smallest feature, the smallest fraction of what we were building that had to do specifically with video, which is really all around what our company's about now. She said, that piece, that's of interest. And I often look back at that meeting because it could have been looked at in different ways, right? Like for somebody who is a lot less optimistic, you think to yourself, I just stayed up God knows how long to finish this presentation, and you just told me 90% of it is absolute trash. But fortunately, you know, what I did hear in that was opportunity. And funny enough, like that's pulling it back to that same word that you were just focusing on. And in this journey, something that I've seen time and time again is even the times that you're being told no, or this is stupid, or this is dumb, if you tune your ears in the right direction, you actually can see which direction you're moving. And that's been incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I guess my experience has been in the most recent one, and sort of in light of COVID, which exacerbated the problem. So when we started our first company, we started at a brick and mortar / technology. We literally took over where somebody took out an ATM from a grocery store, and we started offering, you know, fintech loans where a robot made all the decisions, right? And then fast forward from that, we knew that to build trust is paramount, especially for the underserved that has been constantly tricked, right, with the fine print. So we're like, we're gonna build trust, it's gonna be the best brand. And the name of the company is Listo, which means smart and ready, right? You gotta be smart. We're gonna help you make smart financial decisions. So we started with brick and mortar, and you can imagine the looks we got with investors' faces from Silicon Valley, like, what? Are you crazy? Brick and mortar in this age? We're like, well, that's how we get to market, right? But you know, COVID happened, and the design was more like an Apple experience where you would go into the store, and we would teach you a new way of consuming financial services out of your mobile device. So when COVID hit, we quickly pivoted, right? Because we were training a lot of, let's say, customers that weren't comfortable engaging on the digital world. All of a sudden, found the need to do that and jumped on the bandwagon, and we grew as a result of that, right? So we changed by almost by necessity for funding reasons, but then also COVID hit and allowed us to sort of do very well in light of that, and we're reaping the benefits now. So.
I remember when I started, I had this idea that Musicasa was going to, that everyone, so let me put it into perspective. In the US, more than 52% of the population hosts from the home. On average, 7 times a year. It's $1 trillion market. It's gigantic, right? Like you cannot even start wrapping your head around it. But at the beginning, I wasn't looking at it from a host perspective. I was looking at it from, you're doing like something in your home and you want to elevate culturally what you're doing. So we're just going to match you with a band and you're going to have this incredible experience. And everyone's going to want to do it for the open to the public. Like you're going to sell tickets and you're going to have strangers go to your home that you don't know. And that's the idea. And I remember like the first 25 customer calls and they were like, we don't want strangers in our home. But what do you mean? Like, this is a great new way to meet people. This was right before the pandemic. And they're like, if I could do this for my friends and family and I could sell tickets to my friends and family, then I would definitely do it. But if I'm obligated to do it for strangers only, then no, I'm not interested. And what I found out is that they're willing to do it for strangers once they've done it for their friends and family. Because then it becomes, the friends of friends become an extension of their network, and all of a sudden they start understanding that this is safer than what they were sort of like imagining in their heads. So that allowed me to be more flexible in the solution that we were doing, and just letting people customize the Musicasa that they're doing in their home based on their needs, and we're just gonna give them a box and the guidelines on how to go around it. And that's really what gave us the opportunity to start testing this in a way that, well, now we've done 310 Musicasas with more than 11,000 people. We've raised over $1 million, and now we're building the product, which has already started automating 50% of the business operations, right? So we're on their way.
I love it. It's like a key insight because in my head I imagine like someone having a mosh pit in my living room. But having my brother in that mosh pit makes it seem like.
You know what I got a lot? Oh, but it says you Latinos are so loud, and I'm like, but this is not a party. It's a concert, and it's before 10. But there's these connotations that Latinos are just gonna throw the party out the window, or in Puerto Rico we say botar la casa por la ventana, and it's like no, you don't understand. We are also very culturally driven, like in our DNA, hosting from the home. It's part of who we are.
That's great.
So now you just get to share the costs.
I love it. Questions from the audience? I think there's a mic roaming around. Okay, perfect.
Is this on?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. So I support CoFounder Relationship development, and that's a big conversation that should be happening around like day 0 to 1. And so I'm curious if you have a co-founder or even just an early stage founding team, what conversations were super critical to have around like day 1?
I used to have a co-founder. So I treat my working relationships, at least the first 5 to 10 working relationships, as matchmaking. And someone was mentioning this in an earlier panel, where you really need to find the right fit of people, right? So I professionally dated my co-founder for 8 months. And nothing prepares you for the moment that you raise money and you need to start executing and sort of like performing, and then stuff starts happening that you're not prepared for, or that you didn't see or anticipate from your partner, right? So talking about hard moments, like 2022 for me was like, I am sure we're not gonna make it. Like there were so many moments that I thought that we were gone. And I started the year by having to let go my co-founder, who I thought was the right technical partner for this. Great human being, great professional, not the right person for that moment in the company. And the sooner we start realizing that you think you have the right team and they got you to where you are, but they're not the right team to take you where you're going next, the faster you can start to prioritize the business and the legacy of what you're actually trying to build. And even questioning yourself, am I the right CEO for this company? Did I take it where it needed to be taken, and do I need to find someone else? Like those are really important questions you need to be constantly asking yourself, to make sure that this thing that you're building, it's beyond you, Beatriz Ayala, because you want this company to exist with or without you.
Yeah. I'm a solo founder, so I don't know that I'm the most helpful person to answer this question, but I will say there was a very long period during which I was actively seeking a co-founder, and to address your question, there is no silver bullet sort of question or philosophy around co-founder dating that I ever found appropriate, because the whole concept of a co-founder is you're taking two completely independent people and trying to make them work like completely seamlessly. And I say that all of that to mention that I think the key to finding a co-founder is actually knowing yourself so deeply, so intimately, knowing your downfalls, knowing all of the gaps that you have, and the places in which you're super capable. And with that lens, just being completely truthful and transparent with whoever you're trying to bring onto the team.
Yeah, I echo that, and I was privileged enough to start a company with my friend, also from Stanford. We went to school at the same time. So we knew each other very well. We partied a lot together. And, so we had a very comfortable, but even then, to your point, you're gonna have disagreements at some point, right? And there is quite a few classes that try to prepare you for this, but you'll never have the preparation 100%. There's gotta be a degree of respect at the end of the day, and having a lens and making a decision, right? But it's not easy, yeah, choosing a friend, I think, oftentimes is a good thing, in my opinion, because you do know each other fairly well. Hopefully, the friendship doesn't break up as a result of that, but know that it could, right? And you're putting it at a risk. But I think there's some pluses there.
Could I add like a tactical thing?
Yeah, sure.
On how, if you're building a company, or if you're thinking you want a co-founder, like create a framework in which you can both answer really key questions about yourself, about your belief system, about like, what triggers you, like creating a wiki of who you are as an individual, and then having the really hard conversations in non-hard moments. Like you don't want to be having a belief system conversation in a moment that's critical for the business. You want to have that beforehand, so that when you get to the really hard moment, you already know where both of you stand, and you can sort of like carry each other through that sort of like tumbling moment of building a company.
That's really good feedback. It's the same as raising money. You want to be raising money before you need it.
Yep.
So exactly the same.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's a little late.
Yep. Oh, there's someone.
Is there
here.
another one? Oh, sorry, I can't. Thank you.
So, two questions I have. The first one is, like what you were mentioning. So when you have no to your point, I mean ideas, like you wanted to build this incredible thing in terms of in anything that you wanted to resolve in the community, maybe as a nation, maybe for the world, right? The investor's perspective is different. Maybe professionals' perspective is different. And then the family perspective is different for me. So when you get a no from those people who you really love, close to you, like maybe your mom, your dad, your brother, or partner, someone really close to you, and then say no to you, how you are gonna handle that? Like, what helps you, like what kind of tactics have you been used, or if you face that kind of experience? And then the second question is, do you think, oh, I am lucky, this has happened, so luck can help anything in going 0 to 1? Thank you.
So I'll answer the first one. Yeah, no, I think it's, again, we talked about the importance of surrounding yourself around people who are supportive, right? And friends, right? We oftentimes meet up, talk about our issues, help each other out. Your significant other, your partner, yeah, I mean, you have to have your priorities. If you don't have their support, then I think there's very little you can do, right? And these are things that you have to. It comes down to values, right? And making sure that you guys are aligned, because if it's an economic decision, then it's not just you anymore, right? You have to think about the decision of your spouse, your responsibilities, right? And those are things that are very serious things to consider, right? And in terms of the professional no's, you heard here, went up from 40 to 100 investors now. So yeah, you have to get really used to the no's. You just keep on going, and eventually you'll find them, right? And find that support. And in terms of the second question about feeling lucky, is that it? Yeah, absolutely. But I read somewhere that luck is not, it's basically created as a part of who you are as a person, right? If you're open and willing to connect and help people out, things always come back, right? So just always do the right thing, help people when you can, And to me, that's luck. It just happens. And there were times when I thought we weren't gonna make it. I wasn't paying myself for a while, and long and behold, you meet an investor that believes in you, and boom. And it also happened in the first company, right? That went public. There was one Christmas that my partner and I looked at each other and like, should we even have a Christmas party? Because we're about to close the company, right? And next thing you know, a friend of a friend from Stanford connected us, and we got a $5 million check, the following week, right? Is that luck, or is just connections, relationships, just being you, being genuine, and connecting with people and doing things for the right reasons, right? That's how I define luck, anyways.
Yeah. I'll briefly add on to my thoughts on the question. As it relates to no's, for me, the why is always multiples of times more important than the no. If someone's ever telling me, I don't like this, tell me why. If you think this is a bad idea, why? And it's through uncovering the responses that you're able to understand, how do I navigate through this? When it comes to family in particular, sometimes if somebody says, no, I don't want you to quit your job and go chase this dream of yours, if it's coming from a concern around financial uncertainty, that is the issue to address, not the fact that they said no, at least from my perspective. And then the other piece around luck, I think I'm a person of faith, so I don't call it luck. I do believe it is God / the universe conspiring in such a way that you're working hard, but things also will, orchestrate itself in such a way that things work out. So I don't personally use the word luck, but I do believe that timing and things lining up in the way that they should is very important to finding your personal journey or your personal version of success.
I agree with both, so I'll leave it at that.
That sounds
there
great.
was another question.
Yeah, I think there's one here, Sam.
Thank you. I really appreciate everything that you shared. I wanted to ask, what has been the role of having either mentors or sponsors in your own life as diverse entrepreneurs, and how has that made a big difference? I think a lot of the time, we speak in generalizations, but uniquely, people opening doors or people being major advocates, as an example, like myself as a Black founder, has in some circumstances either led to new opportunities. And I want to know, what role has that played for you? Anyone could take that.
I can answer that, and I'll share it with a quick story because I know that time is up. So my life and Musicasa's life changed in August of 2021, and the reason why that happened was I have been building this relationship with the former managing director of Endeavor Miami, and it was we connected, so I just started building that relationship. What I didn't know was that she had been talking to the founding general partner of a VC in Miami about me and Musicasa for 6 months. And I had just heard of her name, like being thrown out, that I need to meet this woman. And I'm like, well, why doesn't anyone introduce me to this woman? So I get invited to this party that I don't even know how it happened, but it happened. And I get there, and I thought it was a 20-person party, and it was like 200 people. And I am walking to the bar, and all of a sudden I see the woman that everyone's been telling me you need to meet, but no one introduces me to. So I forget the bar, and I go to the woman, and I tell her, hey, everyone keeps telling me that I need to meet you because, one, because in the space that you're in, but also because you and I have the same voice, because we're both very raspy, right? So, and she starts cracking up. She's like, who are you? And with this confidence of telling me that. And I tell her who I am, and she's like, I've been hearing about you for 6 months. I love what you're building. We're investing. And at that point, I'm like, yeah, you're investing. She's like, we're investing, but you don't believe me, but we are. The next day she calls me. She's like, when are you coming to the office? I want to close this deal. And she became our lead investor for our pre-seed round. And I was raising $400,000 and ended up raising $850,000, right? In a span of 4 months. And it changed our path. But it was having someone that I had no intention of leveraging, or I knew how to leverage, that she knew exactly what to do to help me. And here I am. Thanks to Jennifer, by the way, who recommended me to be on stage.
All right. I think that might be all we have time for. Yes. Okay. So we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.